Rounding is not a rule. Often when we teach students rounding, we teach them rules. In the third grade, students are expected to be able to round to the nearest 10 or 100. In the fourth grade, students are expected to round multi-digit whole numbers to any place. And in the fifth grade, students are expected to round decimals to any place. So we need to ensure that we teach students that rounding is not a rule. How do we do that? Let's take the number 26, for example. When we ask students to round 26 to the nearest tenth, we often teach them a rule. We teach them to look at the number in the ones place, in the ones digit, and we ask students to determine if that digit is greater than or equal to 5, and if so, to round that number to 30. However, if that digit is less than 5, we ask students to round that number to 20. So in this case, we're teaching students a rule. Instead of teaching students a rule, let's teach students to understand rounding. How do we do that? To teach students to understand rounding, we're going to make connections between rounding, skip counting, identifying numbers on a number line, and eventually adding and subtracting on a number line. So, given the number 26, when asking students to round 26 to the nearest tenth, we should first ask students to skip count by tens. Why tens? Because we're rounding to the nearest tenth. So students, let's skip count by tens. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. Great, we've just skip counted. Now, given those numbers, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, what two numbers does 26 fall in between? What two numbers is 26 in between? Well, hopefully students can identify that 26 is between 20 and 30. Great. We've identified that 26 is between 20 and 30. So now, I'm going to create a number line. My number line is going to start at 20 and end at 30 because we've identified that 26 is between 20 and 30. Next, I want to ask students to determine what number is directly in between, directly in the middle of 20 and 30. Hopefully students recognize that 25 is directly in the middle, directly between 20 and 30. Now, let's ask students to place 26 on the number line. Students, would 26 come before 25 or after 25? Well, hopefully, if students have a good concept of counting, they recognize that 26 comes after 25 on the number line. Because 26 comes after 25 on the number line, we can then ask students, well, 26 rounded to the nearest tenth, we're really asking, is 26 closer to 30 on the number line? Or is it closer to 20 on the number line? And since 26 is after the halfway point of 25, we can then say that 26 is closer to 30. Therefore, 26 rounded to the nearest tenth is 30. Rounding is not a rule. When we teach rounding this way, we're building students' conceptual understanding of rounding. We're tying and making connections between rounding, skip counting, and placing numbers and identifying numbers on the number line. All of these skills will be incredibly helpful when we add and subtract later on in the curriculum.